Hi, good day. This is Greg Lewis, City Manager of the City of Lebanon. I want to welcome you to our show again, Lebanon in Depth. And today we're going to divide our show, as we always do. Our first part of our show is going to be devoted to the capital improvement plan for the city. And we're going to focus on projects that are being considered in 2012. And then in our second part of our show, Chief Alexander is going to join me from our Lebanon Police Department, and he's going to discuss some of the particular specialty areas that the police department works in. You have to excuse me today. I usually don't have a bunch of paper lying around, but as we're here, because we always try to be informal, and this whole point is to connect and provide information to you. But because I'm going to talk about the capital improvement plan and the various projects, I want to make sure that to the extent we can cover them during this segment, that I don't miss anything. What this whole thing's about is, when you're a city, you have to invest for the long term. Lebanon is a city devoted to sustainability. In order to have sustainability, you have to look at the capital infrastructure within your jurisdiction, within our community. We have to continue to look and see where we need new capital improvements, where we need to change out or transform existing capital improvements, or we simply have to do a reconstruction of capital improvements. This is an investment on behalf of all the residents of the city of Lebanon, and they have to be carefully measured as to cost and benefit and risk. I'm going to give you at least a sampling, if not all of them, that we're going to be pursuing for the dialogue. The dialogue is an extensive dialogue. It opened already with the first meeting with the Capital Improvements Committee of the Planning Board. From there, that committee, it'll go to the Planning Board for a conversation. They're focusing on not all of the plans, all of the projects, but certain ones where there's some development in the community that's in a growth aspect. Then the full plan is going to go to the City Council of Lebanon, and it'll be this fall. It's going to be a companion to the 2012 budget. And right now, as I've said in previous shows, it's a very strenuous challenge for the city of Lebanon, as it is all cities. You can see by the recent activity at the federal level, coupled with the prior activity at Concord from the state level, that the shifting of costs or the diminishment of revenue to our city is ongoing from all different directions. So I think it's very important to us that we be careful in what we pick and choose to do for capital improvements. The capital improvements that I want to mention today, first of all, is a lot of things have to do with our processing of sewer water and storm water. One important thing is that we have a pump station that is to replace sewer infrastructure, and this sewer infrastructure is necessary because we remember in this area where we're going to do this pump station, it is the new Lebanon Middle School, and also previously the Public Works facility of the city, and there's the Hillcrest acreage development. Now, when all that comes about, the flow from the sewer in that area is going to overrun our capacity of our present pump. So that is a piece of the capital improvement plan that will be passed this year, and passed on for consideration this year. That is a substantial sum. It's $1.4 million. And that would come out of the fund of our sewer fund. So that means it's the rates we pay for sewer and water. That's the first project I wanted to mention today. Second project is that in our fire department, as with all our departments, we have to try to maintain a replacement program so that we can do replacement for ambulance and fire engines, and we're going to replace one fire ambulance this coming year in the proposal, if that's approved by the City Council. If you don't do that sort of thing, considering how many runs they do and over what period of time, you can imagine the kind of wear and tear you might get, and we have to keep them in good shape for the safety of everyone here. That sum of money for fully equipping one will reach a sum of projected of $180,000. The next item I want to touch on is the the Department of Public Works Sewer Collection System Evaluation. You probably are aware of that the federal EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, have us under a consent order. And we have to, under the consent order, we've got to inspect and evaluate the city's sewer lines and the manhole structures. We've got to make sure our systems are properly maintained, have proper capacity. That sum of money that will be necessary for that program is going to be $200,000. Now that'll come again out of the sewer systems funding, and that again will be on the rates that are projected for having to pay for sewer service. The next fund is again related to infrastructure, about how we deal with different elements. In this case, it's the landfill phase 2C expansion. Our landfill was modified in 2008, and the landfill slopes were changed in 2008. At this time, we need to get additional capacity. And what we are attempting to do with this project is there's going to be a design, permitting, and construction for a new phase at the landfill, and that will allow us to continue to provide those landfill services. I think you know how valuable that is, to be able to go proximate to your community where you live and handle the solid waste stream that you have in our community. That particular item, again, that will go on rates for the solid waste program, and that particular program is going to be proposed at about $3.8 million. So it's a substantial sum, but it's necessary because it's going to serve our community for many years ahead. That puts us out like 15 or so years ahead. The next item that we have for consideration in our capital improvement program is that the Public Works needs to bring into compliance its radios. Many of you who might be knowledgeable about radios, you have to realize, as you already do, that the FCC has changed its requirements for licensing. And as a result, that you have to go to narrowband. In order to do that, we get all our radios to narrowband. Now, we have some capital reserves that we're going to cover for this, but we are going to get compliance so we can keep licensed, because we need to have these communications to be able to serve you all. And that radio compliance issue is $90,000. We are going to look at the corridor roundabout. We had a roundabout committee, and we want to expand that. The City Council is interested in expanding the roundabout study on 12A. We all know that there's some difficulties sometimes in the moving of traffic on 12A. There's probably going to be some bigger plans for all our pathways and all our corridors as we plan for the future with the master plan. But we're going to look at the possibilities of utilization of roundabouts along 12A. This will give us a lot of information no matter what, because it will get some ideas of how the traffic is flowing there. We're going to be looking at our CSO project. Now you see, as I do, I live in a neighborhood near Sim Hill, and that we have the separation of our stormwater and our sewer lines going on. And this is extensive, and you all realize how extensive this has been. The total project is supposed to be complied with. Last one started in 2018. 2020 under the consent order. So we're moving along through this decade. There's a lot of money that needs to be had for this program, and you can see it everywhere you go. Everywhere you see new roads, new curbing being placed in. I think there will be further discussion along those areas about what we can afford or not afford. But this 2012 is that $4.5 million is being talked about in this proposal. And that's pretty much the average of what you're going to spend for 2013. And it goes down to about 3.5 in 2014. So this is a long-term deal. It gets close to $50 million of total investment by the city in these type of projects. Our airport, is a uniquely situated place. For those who have gone out there and looked at the airport, flown out there like myself out at Cape Air, as you fly in, you notice the unique contours of its surroundings and all the trees, and you notice that there's been overhead flights, and the FAA has some very stringent requirements. If you're going to have an airport, for the safety of pilots, passengers, and all type of aircraft that come and utilize. And we remember there's a lot of different things utilize our airport, including such things as people delivering transplants for particular to help save people's lives. It also has, of course, with private jets coming in, So this particular feature, FAA say that our trees that surround the airport in many places constitute hazards because of the way pilots fly airplanes, and they look at how they look at it, horizontally and vertically as they're flying through, that they become hazards. And so they're requiring the city to do something about those. There is some controversy about the airport. Many things are happening with regards to the airport. The FAA administration is shut down right now. And so we're having to do things to deal with the FAA. It hasn't been reauthorized. We're doing an environmental assessment in the airport, and that's going to try to show what else we might have to do. So that's a very important piece. I think one of the, as I get toward the end of our first segment, I want to make sure we talk a little bit about one very important feature, and that is mechanic street reconstruction. I live in West Lebanon, of course I work in City Hall, so every day I drive mechanic, and I drive it from up on Sim Hill all the way down. And I think many of us who drive that every day notice and feel the flow of the traffic, the wear and tear on the streets, and the unevenness of the streets, and the right-of-way and where it's existing, the interface with the intersections. There's some bridges along that way. There's some proposed developments off some of the entryway streets, and so that's a very important project because it's linkage. And I guess one of the things about Lebanon, I think, is that there has to be some movement in our community toward unification of our spirit and unification of the vision of what Lebanon is about. So we should have connections, and we need to have this conversation on mechanics. And so we want to make a priority to connect this street, fix it up, bring it up to the standards it needs to do. We don't know exactly what that will be. It'll need to be studied and designed on how many lanes it might be. There's a bridge on that called Mechanic Bridge, and that's toward the end of the eastern part as you get toward the green in the City Hall. That needs to be substantially reconstructed. So that's a very important project, and we want to send a message about it's to be funded on a split where most of the dollars, 80% will be picked up by the state, 20% by the city, and we want to provide the message to the state at all times that we're very interested in this and that we would like to get it in their queue. Now, this is good dialogue. We're under stress financially because of all the things that have been occurring, less revenues, continuing expenditures because we are a growth center, we are a hub. So the question is how much money you can devote to debt levy. Our current debt levy and a property tax increase would be about 2%. So when we talk about having new projects, and anytime we do debt, we'll have to be very, very, very careful about it. We've kept the property tax debt items to the Mechanic Street, where most of the costs are going to be picked up by the state, and the CSO, which is required of us by federal law. So that kind of brings you a little bit up to date. I'll keep coming back to you and talking more about the CIP program, as well as the 2012 budget. Appreciate your attention and involvement as citizens. These are important things, and the more citizens we have involved, the better off we'll be. So we really appreciate that. Welcome to our second segment. I'm pleased that Chief Jim Alexander of our Lebanon Police Department is going to join us today. It's always a pleasure to be with Jim. Jim, I've always asked the department heads kind of a little bit about their background, because sometimes people don't realize where we're all coming from, but could you share a little bit about your background?
I've been with the police force here in Lebanon for between 21 and 22 years. I actually came from right over the border in Vermont, and I was a policeman down in southern Vermont for the town of Brattleboro. So I've been here, as I said, almost 22 years, and the last 5 years I've served as the police chief with a really competent, great group of people.
That's great. Well, we're happy to be. The police department is just remarkable in the kind of support they provide, both to citizens and to people like me and where I have needs, and trying to help everybody, and they're just always there, and it's so cool. Jim and I are both kind of recent new members of the Riverside Rotary, and one of the nice things that we did the other day was that Jim and some really splendid officers came over and provided a little presentation. And following that, we had a little conversation, because we always want the police department to come on our show, and they'll be on our show periodically for special kind of topics and brought up. But I thought what happened that morning, I thought was very special and important, and so I asked him to address it. It's really some of the team some special activities that the police department's engaged in. And I'm just going to turn it over to Jim a little bit to talk a little bit about some of that.
Well, you know, the department, in a community our size, we end up filling so many roles. You know, we're that one part of government that's out there 24/7. Everything from helping people when water flows into their basement, getting the water department out, to making sure if we see fire to get the fire department out and whatnot. And Lebanon is large enough to have some special needs that maybe some smaller departments don't have, but not big enough to support, you know, certain specialty teams that a lot of cities and towns have.
We're kind of a tweener.
We are, you know. We're right in the middle. So we have to adjust to be able to meet those kind of demands. So we have, you know, I'll just outline a couple of the specialty teams, and maybe we can come back, or I can have representatives come and join you from those teams.
That's great. That's great.
Some of the teams are very obvious. We have a patrol division. Everyone sees them every day. They're our most visible, largest part of the agency. We have detectives that investigate more lengthy crimes and felonies. We have a school resource officer who is our face and our connection to the high school and the junior high. And that would be a great individual to get on your show.
That would be great.
As well, we have the bike patrol unit, which is simply mountain bikes, which you might think, well, there's not a lot to say about that, but they are in the neighborhoods. They're reaching kids. They're being right. You know, when a cruiser goes by from the patrol division, you don't really know anything about that person.
Yeah.
What is he or she like? What are they? But on a bicycle, they may pull up and stop.
Yeah. You're right on eye level. You're
It's right there.
And you're right there in living in the moment with somebody, and you're real. You're right there. There's no barrier there for it. I ran across those officers the other day out in the green, and they were talking to some children that were roaming around the green.
And they get that chance because they're there, and there's no vehicle, there's no air conditioner and windows rolled up. But they also, on the midnight shift, will use them in more stealth methods, where they'll ride up on crimes that are going and people don't even know they're there. So it's a great tool. So they might be someone that'd be really, really good to have in. We have an accident team, which just does all our fatal accidents and serious bodily injury accidents. We have, a number of serious accidents, but these folks, there's 6 of them, and they come out, for whenever there's a fatality or a real messy accident that could lead to, real stretched out litigation. And they are so technical. I'm just glad to have them.